Hello, everyone. It's an honor to have here with us on our CFO interview series, Eduard Ros, Glovo CFO. All of you probably know Glovo, the Spanish unicorn disrupting delivery market worldwide. Glovo is the fastest growing delivery player in Europe, Western Asia, and Africa, currently delivering over 100 million in annual orders and operates in 23 countries and over 1,080 cities. And I'm extremely happy to be talking to my friend Edu, investment banking background, but also successful entrepreneur in a really cool space, helping people live healthier and better with Neutrino. And as CFO at Glovo, well, Edu joined in September 2017, and I'm sure he's seen a crazy growth in these 4 years. Because since then, we've seen the company expanding to over 20 countries and over 1,000 cities. So, well, welcome, Edu.
Thank you so much for the invite, Jorge. It's a pleasure to be here in this series of interviews. And I hope it can be, exciting and interesting for everybody.
I'm sure it will. So, well, the first question we had for you today. So since you joined Glovo in 2017, the company has rapidly grown and expanded to more markets. How have you sustained the finance team's strategic role and maintained their impact as a business partners to other teams within the company? And we'll see what has changed or evolved.
Look, if I think when I joined Glovo in 2017, it was actually summer 2017, where we were at that moment and where we are today, I think a lot of things have changed. I think finance at that moment, it was a department that it wasn't even being created. Yes, there were some finance people doing some accounts payable, some billing stuff, even some accounting, but it didn't have any structure. And actually, that's why they decided to hire me, and that's why they had the opportunity to start the finance department. And at the moment when I joined, I had to face two challenges, which were pretty clear at the moment. On the first one, it was creating a finance department, that it wasn't created with the sub-departments where we wanted to go in a rapid environment where Glovo was growing a lot on a month-by-month basis in the current markets where we were, but on the second one, also on the expansion side. At the moment when I joined, it was, I think, October or November 2017, when we launched our first markets in Latin America. And that was a real challenge at the time, because it was not only growing a team that at the moment was very small, but also trying to think, okay, how I'm going to be operating with those markets, legal entities, teams there, systems there, a lot of things that at the time we were lacking. Still, we are working on a lot of this stuff, but it was a real challenge at that time. One of the things that we did at the time is making sure that when we were launching markets, we were giving enough room, independence, autonomy to the local teams, especially the finance teams, to do whatever they wanted, because it was impossible for us from headquarters to be able to start creating processes, start creating teams, and at the same time giving a good service to the teams. So actually, what we did is hiring small finance teams there, finance managers that they could operate, and everything that we could do in order to make their lives easier, we could do it. And from then on, I think that over the last four years, I think we have developed a lot the department here. In headquarters, we are around approximately 100 people today, just in finance. And we have created a lot of departments that at that moment we didn't have. The first one that I think we decided to create a bit, it was obviously the FP&A and controlling side. That was the first one that we created, because budgeting processes, business plan, those are things that when you are starting and you are growing a lot, it's very important that you keep control and you can see what are the needs of the business, especially thinking about fundraising, cash burn, all of this stuff. The second department that I created was treasury. For me, at least at that moment, and also coming from a startup environment on my previous company, cash is king, absolutely. That's the sentence that we normally use, but in a startup, I would say even more. And knowing what is your runway, how much are you burning, understanding that, it was super important. So the first thing that I did is getting a head of treasury to be sitting on top of the cash, and that was very important to get that status there. Because we've been in several situations where we're running out of cash, and then at the moment you need someone there playing with the payment, with the cash that you're collecting, with everything, so you can extend your runway as much as possible. People tend to think that Glovo has raised a lot of money, and we've always had a lot of funds, but as any startup, we've always gone through difficult moments where you're running out of cash, and you need to play with that. And then I have created all the departments that are being fundamental or are going to be fundamental for the future of our finance department. Tax, for instance, especially talking that we are in around 23 markets, as you were saying, Jorge. I think it's super important to have a tax department that can set the strategy, compliance in the markets. Are we fulfilling our tax obligations everywhere? Another one is systems. We always tend to think that, look, we want to have an ERP, whatever is the brand that you're using, but systems in a company that is growing a lot, scaling a lot, tends to be a bottleneck in the finance departments. And this is something that we have created a team that is just responsible for that, and it's super important. And then other teams that we already have today, obviously accounting and consolidation. As long as you're growing, you tend to have an internal team that is responsible for that. And finally, also, we have a corporate development team inside Glovo that is helping us in two aspects. One is fundraising, obviously, and the second one is M&A. We've also been quite active on the M&A arena. We've been buying some businesses, as you might have seen recently, but also in the past, we've sold some of them. And it's very important for us. And also my background in investment banking obviously was helping me to create this team. So was responsible for this, and we were able to cope with that. So that's, I don't know if you want me to go in detail with some of those things or not, but happy.
Amazing. So we'll be talking today for a long time, because it's a crazy experience. I was thinking and reflecting that, as you were saying, when you arrived, probably nothing there in a sense, right? Everything to be built, but at the same time you had to be expanding. So I felt like if you were in a plane, right, and it's taking off, but the plane has not been built yet, and therefore you are building the plane, but you are already flying. So pretty crazy. No,
we always had the feeling that finance was lagging behind the business. Okay, the business was saying, we're going there, we're going to the other direction. Now the recent example is that we decided to build a lot of dark stores, those small grocery stores that we have in the middle of cities. So from one day to the other, we decided that we need to open around 100 dark stores. Okay, and we need to move very fast. And then look, you just follow the business and you try to adapt to that. And it hasn't been easy. That's the reality, because obviously the teams are stressed and sometimes it's difficult to control things. So it's not an easy process. But we have a value in Glovo that is called gas, and actually we execute fast, and we know that we might also fail sometimes. Things are not going to be perfect, but being able to go first mover advantage sometimes is very important in the business where we are, and we go into that direction. And we always have the feeling that we need, we go behind and we fix things, and we try to get everybody aligned, which is not an easy job, as you might imagine. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. And then so our next question, and it's funny because you were actually finishing your first introduction with that concept of, because coming from banking and private equity background, what is skills and experiences from your time there have helped you succeed as CFO in a company like Glovo?
Look, there are on the, let's say, more finance brick and mortar stuff, when you talk about accounting, controlling, FP&A, all tax, all of those things. I think that the one that is most relevant for me has actually been on the FP&A side, budgeting and business plan process. Because when you are a banker and then you are there, you tend to be a lot looking at business plans, building business plans, and analyzing how is it done. And this is something that was helping a lot to to have a good budgeting and business plan process. This is something that you are helping, and you're building a lot on this stuff. So, and I think it's quite relevant because the business are evolving, and you need to to keep the pace. And when we started, look, we have countries today, we have different business units inside the different countries. So all of these allocations of money that you're doing are actually an exercise that is not easy, and it creates a lot of complexity as the business is growing. And my background in banking, I think it was helping a lot on being fast on modeling, and being surrounded by people that can model fast can help me on all of these things, because corporate development team, the FP&A, those are people that it was easier for me to understand if they could do a good job or not, and also adapting to the reality. I used to say that we have our business plan change almost on a quarterly basis, okay? And you need to keep on adapting things. Not talking about if a COVID, is just coming to you and then it's impossible then to see what we are doing or not. And I think that's one of the things that has helped me a lot. The other things I would say is on the fundraising side. I think talking to investors, analyzing valuation, due diligence process, all of this, I think it was easier for me to adapt into this role, because that's actually what I was doing in banking, what I also was leading a lot in Trino, those processes. So it was easier for me how to talk to investors, how to structure a process. This was something that it was there, and same for M&A. Okay, M&A is a bit different to be an advisor rather than being on the company side, so you need to learn a bit on that. But it has not been the hardest thing for me. For me, it's been probably more on the system side, more on the financial operations side, billing, invoicing, all of those things that are more on the day-to-day processes and so on. It has been super important for me to hire relevant people and be surrounded by people that has experience on those fields, and they can help you grow the business. And this is something that I would say it's super important to. It seems obvious, but being surrounded by talented people, being very, let's say, rigid on the talent that you want to be close to you, I think it's super important, because sometimes we have this feeling that and I'm sure you're having that feeling that we need to hire people. I don't care, because there is so much work that, look, the first one that comes into our office, maybe I will hire him because I need him. Refrain from doing that. Maybe it's better to wait 1 or 2 months to find the right candidate, because we had a lot of growth in the team. I have a very big team. I must admit, I'm very lucky to have a very big team. But also in the past we failed a lot, because we used to say the cowboy hiring or hunting, and then you need someone, and then you feel that it's not the person, and you feel that in 1 or 2 months if the person is the right one or not. And being more, let's say, strict on the hiring process, I think it's super important. And coming from banking, and also we did together the MBA, that you are surrounded by probably very talented people. That's the bar that I think we all should have, because we don't need to be afraid of being surrounded by very smart people. I think that's the other way around. I think your job is going to be easier on that moment.
Amazing suggestion, and totally agree with you, Edu. I think it's key. It's hard because, as you're saying, right, challenges are there, and the work doesn't go on vacation. But we need to avoid the temptation. And you also touch on the COVID for a brief moment now, but we do all think that COVID brought about a lot of growth, right? A lot of usage to Glovo. So all that growth is using customer base in different markets you're situated. From a financial planning and forecasting perspective, how did your team adapt to this rapid change? What were the biggest challenges you had to face?
It was, people tend to think, and that's true, that we've been benefited by COVID from a financial and commercial point of view. That's true. We've seen an acceleration that we didn't saw before. However, from an FP&A or budgeting process, it was a nightmare, especially at the beginning. And because we had 2 phases. The first one, it was probably the first month of COVID. Remember, all of us, we went on March on lockdowns. And at that moment, it was really, really difficult. And I guess for all the businesses, but I talk what I saw. In our case, it was very difficult to see if delivery was going to be allowed in the markets or not. So there was a regulation part. In some markets where we were, for instance, in Peru, it was completely shut down. So couriers could not go to the streets. Restaurants were completely closed. And the second one is what the restaurants were doing at the moment, because especially in the first month, April, restaurants were not prepared to handle delivery. Most of them, they were not on food delivery platforms, and most of them, because of the lockdown, they were not going to the restaurants to open and even service on food delivery. And that was a real challenge, especially in April, because we were seeing actually how revenues and number of orders were going down. We had in markets, some of them were 100% down, others were, the average was around 50% down. and I know we're lucky. Some of you know, if you talk to the travel industry, probably it was 0% everywhere. So that was a major, you know, problem that you're facing there. In our case, I would say we were lucky. It was around 50%. And what we started to see at the end of April is that as restaurants started to open, and then restaurants, you know, started to operate. And we went from May, that it was a disaster, to May, actually, that it was it was actually the highest month that we have seen until that moment in Glovo. And that had a lot of challenges for the team. First one, it was, look, I think all of us went through the same situation. Our board of directors, suddenly they came, hey, how are you? Cash, what is the cash that you have today? Can you survive? You know, doing all those projections. So we decided, we moved from, let's say, weekly projections that we were doing. We were trying to, on a weekly basis, see what we're doing, see that the effects that it had on our cash balances, from monthly projections. We were not able, we normally work on quarterly plans. Okay, we have a yearly plan that we break it down in quarterly plans. So we say, okay, now we're working on Q1. Okay, this is the projects that we're doing, and then you have this budget, and then we move on a quarter by quarter basis. We have to move to monthly ones because it was impossible on April to know where we were going to be in June. So we didn't want to waste the time of our teams in those matters. So we moved to monthly budgets that they were never met, okay? Because, you know, either because they were better than we expected, or the other one, it was impossible because we could not see if the Spanish government was decided to open restaurants at night or not. We could not control that, and that was happening in a lot of the markets where we were going. And that was, look, it was fun, I must say. It was exciting, but it was really, really tough. We had every 2 weeks we had a board of directors that you needed to report. So you need to have the budget. You have, you know, the aggressive scenario, the base one, the conservative one, and we were working on those lines. But again, I think we were really lucky. In our industry, we recovered pretty fast. Actually, second half of last year, especially from Q4, that is normally a strong quarter for us. It was one of the strongest quarters that we have seen. Q1 the same. Now, I would say luckily we have seen normalizing a bit, and people actually is coming back to their normal lives. And now we are coming back to, you know, these quarterly or yearly budgets. We are working as usual, and we have not this impact that COVID was really, it was impacting a lot our businesses and our departments. And especially on the, let's say, FP&A one, it was the one that it was a bit more challenging.
That's probably, you can write a book, right? All of us. But
I think all of us we can write a book of what happened during those weeks. But yeah.
But based on the volume, no, what I was actually thinking and reflecting on your side is as you were mentioning, like in Peru happened that, in other countries happened whatever. So be able to manage all those things at the same time, it's quite a success. So well, congrats. Has there been any change that you made on those weeks that you'll say it will stay? So you mentioned now that you moved from quarterly to monthly, now probably going back to quarterly. But there was any change on any process or anything that you think it was for better and it will stay now as things hopefully go back to normal?
I think on the, let's say, we did a process at that moment that we started to look at every cost line on our P&L and say where we can save money or not. And we created a process, especially on the G&A, general and administrative expenses, all of those things that normally are fixed there and you put there. And we created a process at that moment that still is with us today. It's actually analyzing on a month-by-month basis, or even I would say maybe on a quarterly basis. We are analyzing what we're using, what we are not using, and being a bit stricter on the expenses that we have there, because we saw that at the moment you need to cut things. The first thing that you look is say, well, we're spending on all of those things, all those services, all those tools. And now we are a bit more rigid on the sense, okay, what are the commitments that we're taking? Why do we need this service? If we need this service, is this going to mean that we're going to be replacing another one? And so we have a process now together with the procurement team that we didn't have before. And it's really helpful in a sense that we can be more stricter on that. And the second one that I would say is that our teams are much more agile in the sense that they can forecast and they can project, I would say, with a higher level of flexibility. And we are seeing those, and this is something that we learned during the past. Before it was taking us I don't know, 1 month of process to see, okay, what was going to be our next quarterly budget, talking to a lot of things and all things. And we learned to be a bit more lean in that sense and being able to project faster. And also doing a bit more with less. We also had some team reductions. We did some ERTEs. Unfortunately, they didn't last a lot, but we did some of them, and the teams learned what there was essential or not, and we had to cope with that. And that was also a tough situation. But I think we understood at that moment that sometimes when you go too fast and you grow too fast, there are inefficiencies that I'm sure we're having today, because we're coming back a bit to the normal reality, but we have this discipline internally to say what we're doing well or not.
Amazing. And so last question, as a three-sided platform operating in multiple markets and having to manage the client, customers, and riders list, it means that data complexity is increasing day to day. What did you wish you knew when you first started, or what processes did you wish you put in place earlier on to be able to manage this complexity?
Look, I hope I would have created systems and data team much before than I did. When I came into Glovo, we started to use an ERP. It was already a decision taken at that moment. I'm not going to mention the name because I don't want to blame no one. And the problem, it was not the ERP, but the problem is that when we created the system, it was not created by people that understand how infrastructure and systems should work. And when you need to think about how do we, how invoicing is working, how accounts payables, how accounts receivable, how the general ledger works at Glovo, how payers work, there were a lot of things that we did not do well properly. And what we created is a system that was not able to cope with all the needs that we were having, and also flexible enough to adjust to the new realities. Our business, and I'm sure it happens everywhere, keeps innovating. You have new features and new products that you're launching. When we go to a restaurant or with couriers, we change the price mechanism every day. We're trying things, and the system was not allowing for that. And data, it's a big issue, and data has been historically a big issue. And we were always relying on a central data team. Look, they are going to provide us the information and so on. And sometimes having a dedicated data team that we have today and a dedicated systems team, I wish I would have decided to move earlier to that, because I think the basis of what we are doing today would have been better managed. Today, we need to fix a lot of things that in the past we couldn't. It's true that you always have budget constraints. So if I need to decide if I need to hire an engineer in the finance side, so keeps my ERP and all the connection data and so on, versus an engineer on the business that is going to allow me to be more efficient on the courier side, normally we tend to go into the business side, and we say no, finance will manage. We'll have a consultant that will help us, and we'll do that. I wish I would have created someone that or hired a team that was able to understand infrastructures. How do we need to build that? Okay, where are we getting the information? How we do that? How we do all the billing and invoicing process that in Glovo is super important. All of those things that we have decided to move into that direction already a while ago. So it's not something that we just changed recently. But if I was coming back to 2017, or I was now moving to another company at similar stage, I would think very carefully about finance infrastructure, what the tools that you're using, so you can develop them properly. And as I said before, what we faced at the moment is what we launched is just creating a team and moving into new markets. So it was very difficult at the time, but I would now put a bit more time or invest a bit more time on that. I think I would have saved money and time for the company.
Well, amazing, Edu. So thanks a lot. I think it was extremely insightful. I learned a lot. So hopefully everyone else would also learn a lot from your experience. Congratulations for how everything has gone so far, and the best of luck for the future.
Thank you so much, Jorge. A pleasure to be here and to share some insights. I'll follow the other ones. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of interesting talks in the future where we can learn. And look, thank you so much. Good luck, and hope we can partner very soon. Okay.
I'm sure we can help you. Thanks, Edu.